गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. Om Narayan Narayan Narayan. So today we are discussing Gita, 4th chapter. We were doing on every Sunday, but I had to, Sunday being the holiday, I had to deal with another class. So for the brahmacharis here, Sunday we are doing the same time Prakriya Pratyabhigna, which is a highly advanced text. So therefore Sunday was the only time suited to them. So I had to shift that Sunday class to Monday. I think hereafter we shall do on Monday only. It will be there in YouTube and then Facebook and YouTube. You can listen. For those this time doesn't suit, can listen little later. But the Sunday we'll do Prakriya Pratyabhigna. We are not recording, but the class is going on. There are many classes which we are not recording, but some classes are going on here. Anyway, so today Gita, 4th chapter, towards the end of it, in the last 2 shlokas, what we were discussing is Jnana removes all doubts. This is what we are discussing. Yoga Sanyasta, last 2 shlokas. Yoga Sanyasta Karmanam Jnana Sanchinna Samshayam Atmavantam Nakarmani Nibadhananti Dhananjaya. These 2 shlokas are little confusing. Confusing because he is addressing 2 levels. Bhagavad Gita is more difficult than Upanishads. Teaching Upanishad is easy. Understanding Upanishads is easy. There also some difficulties are there, but comparatively Bhagavad Gita is more difficult because it is simultaneously, when you are simultaneously addressing different levels in the same sentence, in the same shloka, when you are trying to teach 2 different teachings, 2 different levels, and also the audience is a mixed audience, they are listening from 2 different levels, then you have to cover that level and this level. It becomes very difficult. So in the last shloka, to be free from sandeha, the last 2 shlokas talk of give up the doubt and follow the sadhana. Now earlier he told those who have too much of doubts, what is that? Samshayatma vinashyati. In the 40th shloka, one who has samshaya means too much suspecting, suspicious person, negative suspicion, okay, unnecessary negative suspicion is a samshayatma, whose mind is filled with samshayatma. Such person can never learn anything in life. If he keeps suspecting everything, anything in life, the people around, every small thing if you keep suspecting, then it becomes impossible for him to live, impossible for him to be peaceful in life, to achieve anything in life and also in the other life. Therefore he told, Nayam lokosti naparaha, nasukham samshayatmanah. Here samshayatma means a peculiar doubt he means. He doesn't mean the normal doubt. Here Swamiji has covered 2 footnotes. I just read out in Kannada. I read out, they are very relevant here. Sukhavu sikkito illavo, ಸಿಕ್ಕರೆ ಅದು ಸುಖವೆನ್ನುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಮಾಣವೇನು ಎಂದು ಅನುಭವವನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಸಂಶಯದಿಂದ ಕಾಣುವವನು. ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಮ್ಯಾಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್, ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಕಾಮನ್ what do you call that, commonly acceptable universal facts. What is a universal fact? universal experience. What is a matter of experience? Even that some people suspect. See, some people suspect for no reason, because that becomes a morbid nature of them, a psychological and negative nature of them. So don't develop such morbid nature and drop that thing, because too much of credulity means whatever people say, illogical, foolish, harmful things also you believe, another extreme. See, too much of credulity is one extreme. In English we call credulity, means he is a credulousness. Too much of credulous means just believe any nonsense people say. Okay, believe anything. Obviously what is wrong, obviously, like a baby doesn't understand. Just like a baby, what is obviously wrong, illogical, harmful, even that they trust. They tell them, you are supposed to believe, don't question. What is a simple, openly wrong thing, they end up believing. This is one extreme. Okay, believe anything foolishly. Okay, then samshaya, suspicion is another thing. Okay, suspiciousness. Then too much doubting and negatively everything, extremely negative. Everything doubting, everything looking negatively, extreme negativity is another thing. Okay, neither of these extremes should one follow. Okay, that's why we say a reasonability, a logical, a reasonability as a healthy and reasonable thing is balanced. So those who people believe any nonsense against common sense, against logic, against obvious facts, also believe certain things, even if it is harmful, you believe, that is another extreme. Now, so that much of credulous we are not, so therefore we believe those believing people. Talking about the negative people. The negative people alone here Bhagavad Gita is talking. Samshayatma vinashyati. That means a person who suspects what is reasonably good. Just to give a simple example, what is commonly found you can't suspect without any reason. You just say he could be a murderer. If you ask him how, on what basis you say that, simply just like that, he says anybody could be. See the logic how he extends it, because we don't know anybody, so anybody could be, therefore he could be. Any could be is a too generalized statement. Taking a too general statement and a given case you start suspecting a person without any basis. See, this is called people have lost the balanced thinking, reasonable thinking. Too general possibility, anybody could be anything, that is okay. Anybody could be anything, anybody could be good person, anybody could be bad. It is a too general conclusion. Anybody could be anything. Okay. But a given, anybody could be bad, therefore you start suspecting every person on the earth. See, anybody could be cheat. Yeah, that is in general is okay. Anybody could be cheat is a very general, very general possibility. Therefore, your own intimate people, your family members, your friends and your boss, those also you keep on suspecting too much negatively. You start suspecting them as murderers. He says, yeah, anybody could be. Now, this is too much. This is overextending a general possibility. Very general possibility. You are too much extending to anything. This is called an extreme conclusions. This person of this kind of extreme conclusions will be suspecting anybody. Okay, I can understand if a person is hurt, he has been cheated by one or two people in life, 2 or 3 people whom he has trusted so much. So it is a natural that you will be little afraid to trust anybody easily. It is natural. But that doesn't mean that everybody should be doubted and should not be believed. Nobody should be believed on the earth. Then in that way, because you have been cheated by a few people in life, start doubting anybody on the earth, then that becomes another mental case. Extreme case of the mind, where mind is not believing anybody. Therefore, this kind of two kind of extreme people we find in life. Okay, here he is warning about the extreme negativity. Okay, samshayatma vinashyati nayam lokos, because something new when you are venturing, something like a scientist you are investigating, you should have at least a positive hope. We don't say we can't assure you about anything, but a general hope, a positive hope is good based upon certain reasonable facts. Okay, reasonability. Positive hope is always good. Therefore, this jnanam, when there is a problem in life, there is a solution. This general possibility has to be accepted. See, two things. In the worldly life, in Vyavaharic life, empirical life, one must accept that whatever you do, good or bad, you will get the result accordingly. This law is functioning in the world. Otherwise, there is no hope. You will be totally ruined in life. See, you do good thing, you get the good result. If you do something papa, you get a evil result. This is a general law, and a few places it may look that you have been a good person and unnecessarily you are implicated in a court case and put in jail, and certain these things happen here and there. You see them. So a good person who has not committed any crime ended up in jail and nobody helped him. The police also took a wrong case and a certain injustice has been done. Now, seeing this case, people are shocked and shattered. They lose hope, all hope in society and law and then justice. Therefore, this is where we say an atheist cannot help. See, this is atheist. What atheists say? Atheists go by the common sense logic. But sometimes common sense logic is not enough to explain certain experiences of life. For example, you see, recently I have heard, you also must have seen, one person was been falsely implicated in a case. He was put in jail for 10 years. Somebody was more than 10 years, even up to 15, 18 years. And at the end of the 18 years, he was found that there was no case. It was a false case and he is released from jail. You see what such a long time he spent in jail for no mistake of him. Now, if you go by simple common sense ethics, as the atheists go, and you think that there is no justice in life, isn't it? There is no justice in life. But this is where religious ethics works at a little higher level, okay, more than common sense ethics. Common sense ethics explains with the help of the common sense logic, but there are certain situations which are beyond common sense logic. Human mind is unable to explain. Then you will be shocked and shattered. Your faith will be shattered. This is where the religion comes into picture. Religion means the Rishi's vision. Okay? Religion means you don't go by those Europeans' concept of religion. We mean Indian concept of religion. Okay? Because I am speaking in English and word English I have to use. So when I use English word religion, I mean in Indian sense. Okay. So in Indian concept of religion, there is a dharma. So the Rishi's vision explains what is not understood by our common sense logic. Still there is a justice in it. What is it? He must have done some papa in his Purva Janma and he had to pay for it. And this, a law which is a larger than this common sense logic, that is also logical. The law of karma is also logical. So you have your life, so you have to see your life beyond this janma. Before this human birth, human janma, you had an earlier life, earlier janma, and after this death of this body also you will have another janma. Therefore the person has to be seen in the context of his larger existence. His longer his existence extends beyond birth and death. After death also you will continue to exist. Before birth also you continue to exist. You were existing, and after death also you continue to exist. If you take this long life, one point, you have to take that Jiva is beyond the body, Atma is beyond the body, beyond the Sharira, and it has got a longer life, larger life. Therefore in Purva Janma Karma, good and bad, they have an effect, they produce a certain result, and that result comes into this life. And what you do, two things are there. Sometimes you are a very good person, you don't harm anybody, you don't cheat and exploit, yet you suddenly come to harm, suddenly you get some what you say, some harmful, some evil things. You can't give any visible explanation of this janma, this life. You cannot give the reason based upon this janma. Yet he is a good person, but he comes to suffer. A good person is coming to suffer. Then what explanation can our common sense logic give? It can't give. This is where the religious ethics, that is the Rishi's vision of karma, comes into picture. Because Shastra says that you had done some karma in the past janma, and there the result of that karma could not be given immediately there due to various factors, because the law of karma functions. We discuss law of karma some other time, because that itself will take longer time. So that due to many other factors, you could not pay for the evil karma immediately then. Now at certain other time in another janma, the result of the fruit of that karma comes here and catches you. Okay? Therefore, in this life he has not done any karma, but the previous karma of the previous janma comes as a result and gives him trouble. Another example also you can take. In this life, a person has committed sin, some papa, some evil. He has exploited and cheated people for no reason. Yet he is happy in the sense he is not punished. Now people think that this fellow who has got lot of money, he bribed people and escaped the punishment. He bribed people and escaped the punishment. So when he has committed some evil karma, some papa karma, and has not received any punishment in this janma, and he dies. We will be surprised generally, what is this? So is there no justice? He must be punished. Otherwise, you see, a person who commits a papa but doesn't pay for the papa he has committed, either he should do prayaschitta or he has to experience the result of that karma. But now in this life, even after committing a crime, still he is not punished. Then what will happen? Shastra says that he will have to pay for that karma, what he has committed here in the next janma. Both good and bad, note it. Sometimes you do good but no recognition, no good phala. You will be doing a great sacrifice but no recognition and no money, no benefit whatsoever. That karma will benefit you in the next janma. Next janma means in some other context. So whatever good karma you do, they won't go waste, they will come to you as a result. Similarly, the good and bad karmas of the past, if you have not experienced their result in the very janma, in the same janma, those karmas will come at another janma like this or maybe in the next. So this, the basic cause and effect. See, the basic law of cause and effect is extended to a larger life of jiva. Larger life means inclusive of many janmas. A larger life, a larger vyapaka life a larger life which consists of many janmas. Okay, so what we cannot explain in one janma alone, the same cause and effect, the same cause and effect is understood in the context of larger janma. Okay, larger many janmas. Larger life means many janmas. So this is where the religious ethics includes the common sense ethics. It doesn't reject them. See, this is the Hindu religion. We include common sense ethics also, which atheists or people who go by common sense logic can easily, they are accepted, they are included in religion, and it additionally it accepts a religious ethics. So we have got two. Common sense ethics also, you will have a good and bad result, punya papa, and additionally you have a religious ethics. Means the religious vision, the Rishi's vision extends beyond one janma. So the same cause and effect law, the law of cause and effect, is applicable to your many janmas put together. It looks a probability, because we cannot, we being small people, we don't have the Rishi's vision of, that occult vision of seeing the past janma and future janma. Yet we can see the same logic of common sense logic of cause and effect is extended to other. It looks probable. Okay, so even the Rishi's vision, even the religious ethics also should have a probability logic. It can't be illogical. Religious ethics accepts the common sense ethics and extends the same cause and effect law of cause and effect to a larger area of life, which includes many janmas. So it is extending the same cause and effect to other life. It gives you hope and confidence that whatever good you do will not go waste. If you cannot experience the result of your good karma now, you will have to experience, you will be given all the result of good karma in the next life. Therefore, you will have a faith in your good karma. You will be doing good and you will not be discouraged. And bad karma also. If you do some evil karma, that evil karma will catch you at some time later in the next janma. If you know these things, then you will be afraid of doing some evil karma, cheating, exploiting, and destroying others. So this is a very good law. It looks, two things it is. Practically, it makes you a very dharmic person, virtuous person. It makes you a dharmic person, virtuous person, because it encourages you to do virtue and avoid the vice. Avoid the evil karma and do the virtuous karmas, good karmas. It encourages virtuous behavior. Okay, because if you the result of the virtuous actions you do now, virtuous deeds, if you can't get due to some reason, because the cosmic processing has to take place, the cosmos has to process it. Each karma takes its own time and place and conditions. Therefore, in the processing, if you cannot get the result of good and bad karma in this life, that will come in the next life. Therefore, you cannot escape both good and bad. Similarly, what you get sometimes, the pain and pleasure now of this life is due to the past. If you see this law, two advantages. One is your logical sense is not destroyed. The common sense logic is extended by the religious logic. Religious logic is an extension of the common sense logic to a larger area and a more meaningful area. Okay, more meaningful area. Therefore, it is a Rishi's vision, not that you are extending a common man. It is the Rishi's vision, the religious Rishi's vision. So this helps you to be logical thinker. Okay, the common sense is not killed. Otherwise, some religions go against common sense, go against logic, and they'll kill you. Therefore, if you kill your common sense logic, then you will become a blind believer. They will give you any outrageous hatred, intolerance, any cruel activity they'll teach you in the name of God, in the name of religion, and ask you to commit them. Now you say God told you have to commit crimes, you have to kill people, exploit them, murder them, rape them, and do all. Because God told you. then no sense, no ethics, no common sense, no logic. Therefore, if you lose logic, then you will become a devil. Therefore, our religious ethics is logical. Once your logical sense is maintained, you will be talking logically, behaving logically, you won't become illogical, you won't become extreme. Okay? Neither of the extreme, neither you become terrorist nor you become too much credulous person that you believe any nonsense taught you also believe. Any nonsense. That religion says that you ditch your parents, cheat your parents and go with your religious person, religious leader. People have, families are ruined, parents are neglected, and the society is cheated. You just go. Whole nations are ruined by certain religions. Oh. Because the social structure is destroyed, because no ethics, because the ethics is compromised in the name of God. God asks you to do that, that's all. You can cheat anybody. Now this kind of a thing, logical sense it destroys. Okay, therefore this, our religious dharma accepts the common sense ethics, logical sense, and extends it at a higher level of Rishi's vision. And it is logical. Logical in the sense, probability logic is there. You can't see exactly how it is because our vision is limited. But Rishi's vision is larger. It includes the, why Rishis, even now you find in every generation of India, they can read your past janma. They can read your past janma, they can explain to you exactly due to which karma you have this thing. They can tell you your event, situation, and which janma, which karma, which situation. They explain everything. I met myself people having this kind of yogic visions. Yogic vision, every generations we have many people here having those such yogic visions. They can tell you. They can read your mind and can read your past janma also. So our rishis had this vision. So this gives you logical sense, one point. Second point is, your ethical sense is practically also, your frustration, anger, depression will not be there. Because if you come to suffer for not doing anything in this janma, still you come to suffer that you are cheated and exploited, then what will you say? You will feel outraged and get angry and want to destroy the person and become a terrorist. This prevents you. If you come to suffer, Shastra says that due to some past karma you had to suffer that. Don't worry. Take it as a tapas. Don't again commit another crime because you are suffering. Have patiently. Patiently do that. Take it as a tapas. I tell you, that purifies you. That fetches you more punya. It does the two things. The past karma, evil karma is exhausted. Two things. Your evil karma is exhausted. You will have a sane mind. Patience you have. And you will be doing more good karma. Two ways. You will earn punya and exhaust the past karma. Two will be combined there. Then your balance, healthy mind will remain. Otherwise you will get angry and you will become atheist or even terrorist. We see the many people becoming like that. Because you lose faith in the society, world and everything, that such a deep injustice, serious injustice is done to me. Why should I believe the law? I won't care for the law. I won't care for national law, social law. I don't care for them. I exploit anybody and cheat anybody. You will become a wild person. See? So practically you will become, that prevents you from becoming a wild and a terroristic person. Because if you come to suffer, you understand. Wait for few months or few years. Gradually, once that karma is exhausted, the suffering is gone, you will come back to a good life. This is what we see many people. Why many? Almost all people. All people, we see them. This is what is happening. Because everybody comes to suffer. We understand it is due to some past karma. Have patience. Have patience. Learn some good qualities from it. Therefore, gradually, the karma will be exhausted after some time. You will be continuing your good life. You will have a positive mind, hopeful mind. Otherwise, you will become negative person. Okay. And you do now good work, but nobody seems to recognize you. People think that why should I serve the society when nobody is recognizing me? Don't be frustrated. Do. Anything good you do will not go waste. Anything, do sadhana. Any spiritual sadhana, anything that you do will not go waste. It will come to you at some time in next janma. This gives you a positive hope. Okay? It prevents you from becoming a criminal. This karma law of karma, one, it retains your logical thinking. Faith in your logical thinking, belief in your logical thinking, it retains. Because see, religion protecting your logical thinking is a great thing. Otherwise, certain religions teach you against logic. So, it retains your logical thinking. Second, it keeps you sane person, don't become frustrated and depressed, and you have a positive hope. And socially, you won't become a criminal, you'll still be a positive person, a good person, in spite of suffering, okay? And still you will be doing good work to the society. Socially, you will be a morally or ethically good person, virtuous person. Psychologically, your positive hope is maintained. Intellectually, you will be a still good logical thinker, and logical thinking continues without being destroyed or shattered. So these three advantages of your law of karma. See, if a person suspects this very law of karma, he will lose the logical sense. He will psychologically will become highly disturbed, frustrated, angry, and socially also he will become an antisocial element and terrorist and try to kill people and destroy. Because I am cheated, then I'll cheat everybody. I have been exploited, I will destroy everybody. Okay? This person starts suspecting everybody. This is what we call people psychologically disturbed people. Okay? So that's why in India, in spite of lot of sufferings, still we have sane people. We have very few mental hospitals. Only that mental hospitals have come only after Europeans have come, Britishers have come. Before Britishers came, we didn't have, because we didn't need it. Of course, during Muslim period, little bit we had suffered. We have undergone. Because people are highly disturbed. But before that, we didn't have that, because sufferings were taken naturally and people were sane. Even now you find many people, poor people, suffering people, you never go mad, never become terrorist, very rarely. Because this law of karma makes you a sane person and have a healthy suspicion, not unnecessarily over suspicious person. If you suspect the basic common sense, I tell you, where will you go? You can't trust anything. You can't live in life if you start suspecting anybody, anything in life. Therefore, samshayatma vinashyati. In the empirical life, in the religious life, so this law of karma protects you in these three ways, as I told you. It protects you from your unnecessary suspicion. When it comes to Atma Tattva, Atma Jnanam, there also you require a positive hope, because this context is a Vedantic Jnanam. There also, if you inquire the truth, naturally, if you inquire the truth, you will find the truth. Now this fellow suspects like this. See, you are teaching Vedanta, you are promising that we will understand the truth and get liberated from all the samsaric life. Is it possible? I say yes, it is possible, and there are many jnanis, many sadhakas who have attained jnanam and become liberated. You will also do it, and you can see the logical possibility. He says, this also may be a simple brainwashing. It may not be. Now you see, he doesn't look at its logicality of it. And he just goes by the extreme conclusion. He says, this also may be just to fool people, maybe a propaganda. Vedanta may be just propaganda. See, we are not doing any propaganda because we don't expect any money. There is no question of converting people. Neither we are interested in imposing our imperialism, colonizing on others. Those who want to learn, learn. Those who don't want to learn, we don't impose anything. And we also believe sincerely and follow. And see, we are teaching you at every step according to your anubhava. We are not asking you to believe throughout this thing. A beginning is a tentative step. Belief is a tentative step. Just a positive hope it is. A tentative step. Then you investigate. Whatever extent you investigate, you will have a new discovery in life. So it is a tentative belief, tentative acceptance, so that you can proceed with that self-inquiry or investigation into the Atma. We are not asking you to totally believe everything blindly and after death something will happen. So you don't know whether really going to reach heaven or not. All those things, it is a total belief. If it is a complete belief and no logical possibility, not even logical probability, and then naturally a suspicion arises to anybody. So Vedanta is not keeping you under totally complete blank belief. Totally belief, we don't know anything. Just believe that after death something will happen. How do you know? You have to believe that, don't question. If you give him like that, a totally blank belief, a blanketing belief, at every moment doubt arises. Probably I am cheated. Probably this ideology, this guru, this Vedanta may be cheating. He's asking me to believe. I have no way of finding out anything. Totally blindly accept by closing your eyes. After death something will happen. We don't know whether it will happen or not. So if that's that kind of belief, if I teach you, then the suspicion, if you have, it is natural. You are not insane if you suspect, because that is natural. Because how can you put it a blanketing belief and then ask you to do that, and whatever I say you believe it? That blanketing belief gives rise to more to suspicion rather than confidence, rather than trust. So Vedanta is not like that. You investigate. The more you investigate, more you become inward. You start understanding that you are not the body. You are the conscious principle, that the consciousness is aware of the body. So you can feel. To whatever extent you do self-inquiry, to that extent you can have a certain detached outlook, a certain awareful life, a fearless life. Your mind is pure and you become fearless. So even this Atma Vichara as you do, even in this life you can discover a little bit, you can understand it. Therefore, this gives you positive hope. And we are giving you an example of deep sleep where you exist but without the body, without this thing. We are showing you directly your own experience. It is your own experience. It is not a blind belief that you exist in your deep sleep without the consciousness of the world, without the consciousness of your body, mind and sense organs, and without your sense of individuality. Therefore, this is what Shastra is telling. We help you to discover, understand how you in your real nature are free from the body. See, what Shastra says can be seen in your experience. In your deep sleep, you are free from the body, isn't it? So, why should you suspect even that? People say that, oh, I am free from the body, I am free from the mind, I transcend the time and space, and beyond that I exist, I am consciousness, and that is my real nature, Atma. If you say something like this, and we are showing you waking state, dream state, deep sleep state, we are showing it, logically explaining, still he doubts it. He doubts the logic, he doubts the deep sleep experience, and he doubts the Shastra, he doubts the Guru. And if you doubt everything, look at negatively, then samshayatma vinashyati, nothing can help you. Even the common sense logic, we are not going against common sense logic. We are only extending the common sense logic into a deeper, a vaster area, into a larger area. And even that, if you suspect, what is a natural experience of everybody, even common sense logic, if you suspect, then I tell you, nothing you can believe on the earth. There are certain religions which tell you, go against even common sense logic. Okay? If you suspect even the common sense logic, then you will be only suspecting everything. You will be a thoroughly confused person. You will be confused. Okay? You don't know what to trust, what not. Anything may be believed, anything may not be believed. If you have such a sweeping things, certain religions teach you, don't go, even against common sense logic, believe. The other atheist, therefore, seeing such religions, they say, oh, all religions are like that. Indians have developed it, some kind of a peculiar, foolish logic. You see, certain religions teach you, the very religions teach you hatred for other religions. They teach you to destroy others' temples, isn't it? They say that other religions are satanic religions, Satans, and they'll go to eternal hell. seeing these religions, some of the Hindus are suspecting this religion also maybe. I say, why do you say that? Maybe. We are not telling. When we are openly telling you, we don't believe in such foolishness in the name of religion. We are giving you basic common sense logic. Still he says, oh, all religions are same, so therefore this. Now you are unnecessarily extending, you are becoming too extreme. Just because a certain religion teaches in some way, why do you generalize it to all religions? This is unnecessary negative thinking, isn't it? This is too much of negative thinking. Too much of negatively, sweeping negativity, disbelieving all religions is also extreme. Then sweeping positivity, that my religion alone is correct, and even if it teaches you intolerance, hatred and killing, still my religion alone is great. This is another thing. That means don't go by logic, don't trust logic, set aside logic, whatever he says you believe. This is another extreme certain religions teach. There are another people, they start disbelieving every religion. Even a sane, logical, good religions also they suspect. So these two are not good for you. See Bhagavad Gita shloka. This samshayatma vinashyati. Bhagavad Gita talks of bare principles. The social situation, the context doesn't explain. Therefore, even after 5,000 years, we say it is a 3,000 years BC. This is a belief, we don't know how old it is. Bhagavad Gita, probably 3,000 or maybe less also, we don't know. Anyway, time is not important. How old Bhagavad Gita was, maybe even 100 years old also, okay. We don't mind it. How old it is, how ancient or how recent, it is immaterial. It is talking of universal fact, that's enough. Therefore, we don't give much importance to. Some people try to say Bhagavad Gita was not so old as Hindus believe. Hindus believe that it is the beginning of the Kali Yuga, that is 3000 BC. 3000 and these 2000 put together 5,000 years old. Some people say, oh, may not be this ancient. Okay, may not be, so what? Maybe a little less, okay. We are not disturbed, we are not worried. These missionaries try to do that. Christian missionaries, oh, it is not so old. It is not recent, it is a recent book. So what? And they are worried. We accuse them, the missionaries accuse that Bhagavad Gita is not so old, but Hindus are not at all disturbed because we are not fools like Christians. We don't go by these your historicity. We go by the universal facts. Therefore, we don't get disturbed. They think that they can shatter Hindus and then convert them into Christianity. They all will come in one day, in 1 month, 2 months, all India will become Christian. Those fools are fools alone anyway. These missionaries are only fools. They thought that all Hindus will just come away because they proved that Gita is not ancient. So what? We didn't care. We didn't care. So it may be 3,000 years old, or maybe 2,000, or maybe 1,000 alone, or maybe some people say it is only just a little, just before Buddha, maybe few hundred years before Buddha. Some people say it is post-Buddha. They have got their own speculation. We least care about all their speculation, doesn't matter. We say it is a quite ancient, that's enough for us. How? We don't know. We don't need any accurate date for it. You see the principles in it. Bhagavad Gita talks of universal principles. Let the time elapse in thousands of years. Even after another 5,000 years, the same universal principle will remain. We go by the universal principle. Principle is timeless. The universal principle is timeless. It can be any number of years, it will be same truth. It was the same even 3,000 years, 5,000 years ago. We go by the universal truth. Universal truths are timeless. That's why we call apaurusheya, impersonal. These are timeless truths. That's what we mean. By Bhagavad Gita or Upanishads, anything they teach universal. Now this person, he says that, oh, one religion says so superficially, so blindly, it talks of illogically. Therefore, I have met one person and he is a Hindu and he also says the same thing. I say it is not like this. So he says, oh, Christianity says like that, Islam says that, Hinduism also could be so, fooling people only. I say, might be, why do you say? It also might be. Why do you say might be when we are not talking so illogically? Why do you say, oh, when they are doing it, you are also could be like that? I say, you must be some mental case. I told this fellow must be a mental case. We are not talking illogical things as they do. We are explaining the point, you listen, and he says, they have done it, this also could be like that. This is a sweeping, foolish generalization, and this kind of generalization is going against the common sense logic, and this person is too much negatively suspecting. And such person, samshayatma vinashyati. I know one person. Personally, I know him for a long time. I don't want to tell his name and place where he lives. He is a really suspicious fellow like that. Samshayatma vinashyati. And he is miserable only life. He just lives most of the time like a half-depressed person. Half-depressed person, he lives like that. No hope of life. In this life also, you see, his life is very, no beauty, no art, no happiness, no joy in his life. Looks like a little half disappointed, a disappointed and half frustrated person. Routine life he lives. He doesn't know why he is living, just drags on his life. So such person is neither happy in this life nor in the next Janma, because he suspects everything negatively. What can you do? I know him. I'm not in touch with him, but if I want, I can contact him. I know. This is the person. Therefore, samshayatma vinashyati. I think I have conveyed this idea of samshayatma. You see the Bhagavad Gita shloka, this samshayatma vinashyati is explaining a certain universal idea, universal principle. Therefore, you have to find out the events and examples in life, but the principle is relevant to all periods of time, any period in the past and any period in future. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita talks of universal principles. It may give one or two examples, one or two illustrations from the human life, but you can apply to them other places. That's why even after 1000 years also same Bhagavad Gita can be taught and learned. It can be turned, it can be, only you have to apply it to your situations. Maybe Indian situation, European or American or anywhere you go. The human life is same. The basic principles of human life is same. Therefore, the universal principles it talks, you can apply to any life. Only that application you should know, that's where Guru is required. Guru can explain the right meaning of the shloka. Meaning means the principle in the shloka. Certain human principle in the human life. Okay, how it is applicable, how it is relevant, how it is logical, it teaches you. Therefore, what is so universally experienced also suspects such a person is samshayatma vinashyati. This was told in the previous shloka. I think I have repeated it, but anyway, for some people, at least for some people, it will be useful. Now in this last two shlokas, he is telling this samshaya is about before you take up the Vedantic understanding. Another samshaya is as a result of Vedantic knowledge, all doubts of life are cleared. Okay, two levels of doubt. One is doubt about the very Vedantic knowledge, the effect of Vedantic knowledge. Is Vedantic knowledge capable of giving rise to my Atmajnanam and solve my problem of samsara and help me to get liberated, get moksha? Will it do? So the very efficacy of Vedantic knowledge. One is two levels, you see, otherwise these two shlokas are confusing, you note it, otherwise it's very difficult. Shankaracharya briefly stated, he did not explain much. So one is two levels doubt. One doubt is a doubt about the very effective efficacy of Vedantic knowledge. Whether Vedantic knowledge will achieve such thing, that doubt comes. Second thing is, when you gain the Vedantic knowledge, it removes all the doubt about your life itself. Doubt means here all problems of life. Okay, all problems about the truth. Okay, now next doubt is doubt about of the very samsara. Samsara, jiva, all that is. So first doubt, he says, you give up the doubt, have a healthy, positive hope, don't be too negative, listen to Vedanta, follow the Vedantic sadhana, karma yoga, and as you follow, during sadhana also, a small benefit you will get it. At each stage, you will find a certain development in you, spiritual growth in you, spiritual benefit in you. Therefore, you will become encouraged to follow it further. More you follow, more you see the inner discovery of your Atma. As you keep discovering, more you inquire, more you discover, more you inquire, then ultimately all doubts about life and world and who am I, what is this world, all these doubts are who am I, what is this world, all these doubts are cleared. This second doubt is about the very samsara. Who am I? Okay, what am I? What is this world and all this? Why this world and all this, etc. These doubts are different. Okay. First doubt is about the very efficacy of Vedantic knowledge and Karma Yoga, Vedantic sadhana. Vedantic knowledge or sadhana. If first doubt is cleared, the first doubt is about the efficacy of, time is up, I'll just finish in 2 minutes. If first doubt is the efficacy of Vedantic sadhana, if your doubt about Vedantic sadhana is cleared, you will take up a Vedantic sadhana. Then the second doubt is when you pursue Vedantic sadhana and the culmination, all your doubts about life and about yourself, about Atma and the world, everything becomes cleared. You come to understand the truth. Okay, 2 levels of doubt. Here he is talking 2 levels also. In these last 2 shlokas, these 2 doubts got mixed up. That's why explaining these 2 shlokas is very difficult. I think you see them. You see the translations, all the translations in all over the world, in English, Hindi, Telugu, in all languages I see them. They got confused with these 2. These 2 levels of doubts are mixed up. I have read number of translations. Even Shankaracharya explains both, but it doesn't separate them, got mixed up. Even Shankara, you need a guru's help to understand even Shankara Bhashya here. These 2 levels of doubts got mixed up. Okay. So first doubt, when you clear the first doubt, you will take up the sadhana, Vedantic sadhanas. Second doubt is that when you pursue the sadhana and reach the culmination, then the sadhana culminates and produces Atma Jnanam when all the doubts about lives are cleared. Okay? These 2 levels of doubt. First he says, now in the 41st shloka, he is talking the second doubt. And in the next shloka, last shloka 42, is talking of the first doubt. See, this is the confusion. In fact, he should have told the first doubt in the first shloka. But the first doubt is talking in the second shloka, and second doubt is talking in the first shloka. This is how these 2 shlokas confuse us. I think I made the ideas clear. If you see these 2 steps, 2 levels of doubts and 2 steps, okay, the shloka may say a little, it jumbled it, but the basic idea is clear. You can understand these 2 shlokas. I think time is up. We will continue it in the next class. I hope hereafter, I hope it will suit you, because for me, my other brahmacharis, Ram Prakash and other people are coming for Prakriya Pratyabhigna. We discuss on Sundays. Therefore, I want to shift it to Monday. Is it okay? I want to shift this to Monday from 11 to 12. This Gita will be on Monday, every Monday. If it is too difficult for you, then I'll consider of changing. Otherwise, I think I'll continue this. Okay? Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat.